Sorry, I know I'm late to the party, as usual, but I really want to weigh in on that viral TikTok hypothetical. You heard of this one? It's taking the world by storm, really forcing men to reckon with their masculinity. If you were alone in the woods with Hitler, what would you rather have? Another man or a bear there with you? It's a difficult decision because we all know a lot of men are toxic and violent, so maybe there's a chance that the man will take out their repressed psychic rage on Hitler and brutally murder him. Hopefully worse. God knows Hitler deserves it. History Channel. But on the other hand, a lot of men are toxic and violent, so maybe the man will team up with Hitler and hatch an even more evil plan than Hitler could ever dream up on his own. But then we come to the issue of the bear. Lots of information about the bear we just don't know. For instance, is the bear a committed anti-racist? How ideologically impure is the bear? What does he think of Joe Rogan? The other issue is that there's a lot of rumours that Hitler was gay, but again, we don't have enough info. We just don't know. For instance, what were his preferences? Did he like twinks or bears? I think that that's extremely important in this specific hypothetical. It'd be pretty fucked if the bear was Mussolini. Hitler and him got on pretty well. So it's my personal view that you choose the man, and hope to God that that man is a hard-headed, no-nonsense, common-sense former cop like Peter Dutton. Sorry, in all seriousness, I will answer the hypothetical. Would I rather be alone in the woods with a man or a bear? I choose both, because I could take them both easily at once, boys. And also, I'm very sorry for the non-payoff, non-sequitur hypothetical joke that this began with. And actually, no, I'm not. Fuck you, I'll do it again. What would you do if you were alone in the woods with... No. For it to be a non-sequitur, you guys can't expect it. Okay. I promise I'm not going to do anything else clever in this video. You can let your guards down. For the rest of this video, I'm just going to fall back on what Gen X believes is the sharpest form of humour. The Mount Everest of joke work. Combining words to create really annoying swear words and then overusing those swear words. Example, I think the opposition leader and chief of shit fuckery, Peter Dutton, is winning the information war. How 1984 is that? I'm basing this off a few things, but mostly because implicitly and instinctively, like him more than our current Prime Minister at the moment, I gotta say. Now, you're probably thinking, Judith, how could you possibly like that massive cockwomble? Because you fuck screw. My untested, uncritical gut feeling isn't fringe. It's being backed by poll after poll, which show the same trend. Labor and Albanese on the decline, Liberals and Peter Dutton on the up. And I'm a fair weather fan. And I really think this trend could continue, especially in the wake of Peter Dutton's budget reply, which was, come on, a masterstroke. It's got to be one of the best budget replies I've seen from a party, which if it were actually in power would result in far worse policy outcomes for working people. But as I sat there watching his speech, all I kept thinking was, man, I wish Scott Morrison was delivering this speech, because then it would be a double meaning when I say, let him cook. Because it's the seed of cook. And shit, I forgot I'm not supposed to do anything clever. What a fuck stick of a situation. Jenny. Subscribe. One of the standouts from it was proposing a 2-year ban on foreign investors and temporary residents purchasing property. But Dutton, why stop at 2 years? Now cue the Redditors demanding that I watch this clip. I have! To try and figure out how to cut it down, but I can't. You're just gonna have to watch the whole thing, sorry.
Peter's, I have to say, it was a pretty lightweight presentation. It was more like a show bag of slogans and band-aids. One example was, quick quiz for Peter Dutton. He says he's going to stop foreigners buying houses over the next 2 years. I just wonder if he knows how many foreigners bought houses in the last 2 years. Over to you, Pete.
Well, Bill, back to you. I mean, how did you go in the 2019 election? So, as an opposition
did you
leader,
say you don't like personal attacks when you can't? Oh, zinger. You just said before you didn't like personal attacks. As soon as you're under pressure, you go personal. What about the question I asked you? You said last night, I'll repeat the question. You said last night that you're going to stop, you're going to save housing in Australia, hooray, and the flag's flying. And you said we're going to not have those foreigners buying houses. Now that sort of sounds interesting. So I went and checked overnight. How many people in the last 2 years who are foreigners bought houses in Australia, Pete?
Well, Bill, a couple of points. One is that we say that in the first year, 40,000 homes will be freed up. That includes the numbers who would be bidding at auctions this weekend against Australian citizens. That's the reality under your government. It won't be under mine. We have a situation where if the government had have adopted our policy over a 5-year period, you would free up 325,000 homes. So the number of people who are foreign citizens who are buying houses in our country is low, but nonetheless it contributes to an overall shortage of housing in our country. And our policy, when you combine it all together, is a pretty significant
I'll tell you how low it is.
which is going to be good for Australians.
It's less than 5,000, Peter.
Gentlemen,
2 years, less than 5,000. That's
Bill.
your plan.
Now, I know you're thinking, well, that seemed like Bill Shorten owned Dutton with facts and logic, which, yes, he absolutely did. And I really hope he dyes his hair blue and starts debating on Twitch under the username FactSimp. Because like most Twitch users, he's taking his biggest insult and owning it. But guess what? Feelings don't care about your facts, simps. And it may be true that only 5,000 foreigners purchased homes in the last 2 years and that Dutton didn't know that number and that he's a fucking idiot and there are way better ways to increase housing supply and affordability that Dutton absolutely wouldn't dare address. Like maybe Dutton could buy back his sweet Gold Coast pad and let the down and out stay there like the local drive home team from Hot Tomato FM. Like look at Big Trev. You just know he needs it. But just because Dutton didn't propose anything substantive to address housing, it doesn't decrease the potency it has as a talking point. You just know he's going to harp on it till next election. Why should foreigners get a home when the average Australian can't afford one? Yeah! If you put aside the fact that Labor already tripled taxes on foreign home ownership, which is a much better solution anyway, as it's an insignificant level of the housing stock, but you can leverage the ownership's money to put into other housing programs that actually will increase housing stock, but that just doesn't sound as good to the average punter as, if I don't have a house, why should a fucking Eskimo make their houses out of snow anyway? The other main thing Dutton proposed was a slash in permanent migration by 25%, but as pointed out by Laura Tingle in an article that I will bitch about in a second, but for now it agrees with me. This isn't actually going to reduce the number of people coming into Australia who are a burden on our already overcapacity services. It'll most likely just shift people who are already here onto another class of visa. Now, do I have a problem with Laura Tingle's article when it does a decent job at pointing out the lack of vision in Dutton's budget reply? Well, the article's main thesis is that Dutton's playing a dangerous game, scapegoating migrants for the nation's economic woes. Whoa, who was expecting the tried and true classic ABC talking point of Dutton's actually just a racist and migration is actually awesome, without actually taking into account how migration is affecting our economy right now? The problem with Dutton's strategy isn't that it's dangerous, it's the opposite. It's impotent. It scratches around the edges of policy problems without addressing anything majorly substantive at all. In fact, by hinting that it's dangerous, that just lends credibility to Dutton's plan because it sounds like he's going to shake things up, rattle some cages, and also, so is the ABC's label of, ooh, it's very populist. Like the population is supposed to hear the word populist and think, oh no, he's doing something the population would agree with. Well, I'm not giving him the keys to, let's be honest, a very damp, dark, haunted house. Ah! Here's another free political communications tip for Labor Party apparatchiks. Stop watching Insiders and thinking, yeah, that's how the public thinks. They should call this show Salt of the Earth. If people call your policies or posturing populist, that's a good thing. You're on the right track, because guess what? The population votes. It's not just a Grainler by-election. Even then, I'm pretty sure people in Enmore are getting sick of all the fucking cowboys our broken borders are letting in. Dutton's budget reply was not dangerous because it addressed the truth about some of the impacts of sky-high immigration. It wasn't dangerous because he pointed out that the more people pouring into Australia puts a burden, even if it is short-term, on services, infrastructure and housing. I mean, internet addicts, you know what happens when you've got too many people in a RuneScape server. Shit starts to lag. I think. This is what's so insane about some sections of the press. They will not shut up about how immigration has all these positive impacts on the economy. And as soon as someone points out an adverse impact on the economy, their response is invariably, oh, that's a classic race-baiting political point, yes, but if you look at the tiny number, immigration barely has an impact on anything. Something, you're just like Pauline Hanson. That's the dangerous game, being so condescending to Australians to think that you can't discuss migration without calling for Sydney's tallest, blondest and handsomest young men to head down to Cronulla and after you apply some suntan oil onto little old me, beat up some leaves. Look, what I'm getting at is, there's other ways to discuss immigration that don't result in oiling up Alan Jones and giving him a back massage. It feels like immigration has been so effectively tied to culture wars in this country that it's prevented anyone from ever talking about it in any other terms. So much so that the Greens and the Business Council are basically calling for the same thing these days. The difference is one of them is motivated by cold hard economics and the other doesn't want to get called out on an Instagram story. Now, what are some solutions? Well, I think Labor needs to one-up Dutton on immigration, i.e. do exactly what Green Senator Sarah Hanson-Young accuses Labor of doing all the time but doesn't, which is get into a race to the bottom over immigration. And win. And I am sorry to go on and on about migration again and again. I think you get it, but do you? Do you get why I'm doing it? I'm doing it because, one, it actually is important to address, and pretending that it isn't is honestly the same as climate denial, and two, the coalition are always going to win out when it's on people's minds. They absolutely shouldn't, by the way. Howard was the one that doubled the intake. Always say that point to your grandparents, because this myth that they're going to be tough on migration, it's exactly the same as the myth that they're going to be good economic managers. Dutton can ride either of those myths to a victory in the next election because people can now viscerally feel the impacts of nearly 30 years of all gas, no brakes migration. The problem is, as we pointed out in this video here, you can't just turn the migration tap off tomorrow like Dutton is promising. And it's precisely because his party completely booby-trapped the economy. By completely gutting the TAFE system, for the short to mid-term, you can't do anything but rely on high migration numbers because we do not have the skills to keep the country going. But explaining that, and it brings me no joy to say this, is not a populist point. Dutton's point is, in fact, his entire personality is. He could absolutely win an election over falsely promising to solve the problems his party created, and the press turning an economic point into yet another culture war is, as usual, exactly how he's going to get there. So yeah, if you want my 2 cents on the budget, Dutton absolutely nailed his reply and said all the right things. What a fuck knuckle. Like and subscribe, Gen X.